Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes.
This interview was supposed to stay calm and respectful, until one unexpected moment completely changed everything. What happens when Miley Cyrus walks onto The View expecting a playful conversation, and instead finds herself staring down a question that hits too close to the bone? The kind of question that doesn't just spark debate, but cracks open old wounds, live on air, in front of millions. Before we dive into this moment-by-moment breakdown, the studio lights glow brighter than usual that morning, bouncing off the glass table like a spotlight waiting to catch someone slipping. The audience is already buzzing, the kind of low murmur that says something's coming. Miley Cyrus sits in her chair with one leg crossed over the other, leather boots tapping softly against the floor. She's smiling, wide, familiar, disarming, but there's a tightness in her jaw that only the observant would notice. This isn't her first talk show. It isn't even her first View appearance. But today feels different. Whoopi Goldberg opens the segment with a warm laugh, setting the tone, tossing out compliments about Miley's evolution, her music, her fearlessness. Joy Behar chimes in with a joke, the audience laughs on cue, and for a moment, everything feels safe. Sunny Hostin, though, is quiet. She's listening, watching. Her notes are stacked neatly in front of her, pen resting across the top like a bookmark waiting for the right page. Miley talks about her new music first, how it's raw, how it's honest, how she's finally comfortable being uncomfortable. She jokes about reinvention, about growing up under a microscope, about learning when to stop apologizing. The crowd nods along. Applause flares and fades. Miley feeds off it, shoulders loosening, voice growing more animated. This is her element. Then Sunny leans forward. Her voice is calm, measured, almost gentle. "Miley," she says, tilting her head slightly, "you've talked a lot about freedom, personal freedom, artistic freedom. But some people feel that the way you've expressed that over the years hasn't just been liberating for you, it's been harmful to others." The temperature in the room shifts. It's subtle, but it's there. Miley's smile freezes, not gone, just paused, like a buffering screen. Whoopi glances sideways. Joy raises an eyebrow. The audience quiets, sensing the pivot. Harmful. Miley repeats softly, more curious than defensive. For now. Sunny doesn't rush. There were moments, performances, imagery, where critics say you blurred lines. Cultural lines. Moral lines. And now that you've entered what you call a more grounded era, do you look back and feel any responsibility for the impact those choices had? You can almost hear the air being sucked out of the studio. Miley leans back, eyes flicking upward for a split second, as if replaying 1,000 headlines in her mind. She exhales through her nose, then laughs once, short, sharp. "Wow," she says. "We're going there early." A ripple of nervous laughter moves through the crowd. "I think," Miley continues, voice still light, "that people confuse discomfort with harm. And I've never been responsible for making people comfortable." Sunny nods, but she doesn't back off. Discomfort is one thing. Influence is another. You were very young, with a very young audience. That's when Miley's posture changes. She leans forward now, elbows on the table, hands clasped. Her tone drops, not louder, not sharper, just heavier. "I was also a human being," she says. "Not a mascot. Not a moral guide." Joy jumps in, trying to ease the tension. "I mean, come on, Elvis did worse," she jokes, waving a hand. A few laughs break out, but they fade quickly. The moment refuses to be smoothed over. Sunny keeps her eyes on Miley. But Elvis wasn't growing up in the age of social media, where every move becomes a message. Miley's eyes flash. "So what's the message supposed to be?" she asks. "That women can't explore without apologizing later." The audience reacts, some applause, some gasps. The division is immediate and audible. Whoopi finally speaks, grounding the room. "Let's slow it down," she says. "Sun is asking about reflection, not accusation." Miley nods, but she doesn't sit back. "And I'm reflecting," she replies. "I'm just not repenting." That line lands hard. Applause bursts out, louder this time, mixed with scattered boos. Sunny presses her lips together, considering her next move. She isn't angry, but she's not finished. "Do you think," Sunny says carefully, "that there's a difference between freedom and responsibility when you know millions are watching?" Miley's voice softens, but her words cut deeper. "I think responsibility starts with honesty," she says. "And honestly, I survived my choices. A lot of people don't survive being told who they are supposed to be." Silence. The camera cuts to the audience, faces intent, some nodding, some frowning. The tension is no longer just between two women at a table. It's in the room. It's in living rooms across the country. Sunny exhales, leaning back slightly. I hear you, she says. But I'm asking because representation matters. Miley tilts her head, eyes unwavering. So does autonomy. The clash isn't explosive, yet. There's no shouting, no walk-off. But something fragile has cracked. The polite boundaries of daytime television are bending under the weight of lived experience, and everyone can feel it. Whoopi clears her throat, signaling a break is coming. But as the segment pushes forward, one thing is clear. This isn't just an interview anymore. It's a reckoning, and it's only just beginning. The cameras don't cut away fast enough to hide it. The faint tightening around Sunny Hostin's eyes, the way Miley Cyrus's fingers flex against each other as if she's grounding herself. When the show returns from the brief pause, the audience applause is polite but hesitant, like they are unsure which side they are supposed to land on. The energy has shifted. This isn't a fun celebrity chat anymore. It's a live wire stretched tight across the table. Whoopi tries to reset the rhythm, her voice warm but firm. Miley, you've been very open about your journey, she says. About therapy, about healing. Do you think that process has changed how you look at your past? Miley nods slowly. It's changed how I look at myself, she replies. Which is harder? Sunny watches closely, sensing the opening. And does that healing include accountability? She asks, her tone still controlled but sharper now. Because growth usually does. The word accountability hangs in the air like a challenge. Miley lets out a small breathy laugh, but there's no humor in it. Accountability to who? She asks. To people who projected their expectations onto me when I was a teenager? Or to an industry that profited off my rebellion and then shamed me for it? A murmur ripples through the audience. Heads turn. Phones shift in hands as if people are already composing tweets in their minds. Sunny doesn't flinch. To the kids who watched, she says. To the parents who felt blindsided. Miley's jaw tightens. I was one of those kids, she fires back. I didn't get a warning label on adulthood. Joy Behar interjects again, this time less joking, more reflective. You know, she says, every generation freaks out about the next one. Madonna did it. Britney did it. And they survived, Miley cuts in. Barely. And with scars. That stops Joy mid-sentence. Sunny leans forward again, hands clasped. But you've said yourself that you regret certain moments. Miley's eyes flicker. I regret being unprotected, she says quietly. I regret adults not stepping in when things went too far. But I don't regret expressing myself. The room grows still. Even the audience seems to lean closer. Sunny's voice softens, but her point doesn't. So you see no line, she says, where expression becomes exploitation. That's when Miley's composure finally cracks, not into anger, but into something rawer. I was exploited, she says, her voice steady but low, by the same machine that now wants me to apologize for surviving it. A sharp inhale echoes from somewhere in the crowd. Whoopi's expression changes. This is no longer theoretical. This is personal. That's a heavy thing to put on the table, she says gently. It's already on the table, Miley replies. It always has been. People just preferred it dressed up as controversy. Sunny shifts in her chair, crossing her arms, not defensively, but thoughtfully. I'm not dismissing your pain, she says. But public figures don't exist in a vacuum. And neither do young women, Miley responds instantly. We're just the ones expected to carry everyone else's expectations quietly. Applause breaks out, louder this time, more unified. The sound washes over Miley, but she doesn't smile. She looks tired, honest, unfiltered. The camera catches Sunny pressing her lips together again. She nods slowly. Let me ask you this, she says. If a young artist came to you today, wanting to shock, wanting to rebel the way you did, what would you tell her? For the first time since the tension began, Miley pauses. A real pause. She looks down at her hands, then back up. I'd tell her to protect herself, she says. To build boundaries before breaking rules. And to never confuse attention with love. The audience reacts immediately. Soft am-ham sounds, scattered applause. Sunny seizes the moment. So you acknowledge there were consequences? Yes, Miley says. For me. And for others. Sunny presses. Miley meets her gaze. People choose what they take from art, she says. I can't live my life apologizing for other people's interpretations. A ripple of tension returns. The push and pull is relentless now, neither willing to fully concede. Joy exhales loudly. "This is why I'm glad I'm old," she mutters, drawing a quick laugh and briefly lightening the mood. But Sunny isn't done. "Some would say that stance avoids responsibility," she says. Miley tilts her head. "Some would say demanding repentance from women is just control dressed up as concern." The audience gasps. A few claps break out, then more. The room is split, and everyone can feel it. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. "Okay," she says. "We're getting somewhere real here." Sunny turns to Whoopi. "I think it's important," she says, "that we don't romanticize rebellion without talking about impact." "And I think," Miley says calmly, "it's dangerous to sanitize self-expression just to make adults comfortable." The silence that follows is heavy, electric. Even the crew seems frozen. Sunny looks back at Miley, her eyes searching. "Do you feel misunderstood?" she asks. Miley doesn't hesitate. "I feel edited," she says. That lands harder than any raised voice could. The audience erupts, not in chaos, but in reaction. Some stand to clap. Others remain seated, arms crossed, processing. The clash has moved past a single question now. It's about power, about gender, about who gets to define growth and who gets punished for finding it publicly. As the segment inches forward, it's clear this conversation isn't cooling down. It's sharpening. And whatever happens next won't just echo inside this studio. It's headed straight for headlines, timelines, and a cultural argument that's been waiting for a spark like this. The applause dies down slowly, unevenly, like a storm retreating but not gone. You can feel it in the room. No one's relaxed anymore. Even the audience members who clapped are now sitting straighter, bracing for what comes next. The conversation has crossed a line where there's no easy way back to polite daytime TV. Whoopi glances at the monitor, then back at the table. "This is one of those conversations," she says, choosing her words carefully, "where everyone watching is bringing their own history into it." Sunny nods, but her eyes never leave Miley. "That's exactly why it matters," she replies. Miley shifts in her chair, uncrossing and recrossing her legs, a restless energy running through her. "And that's exactly why it's unfair," she says. "Because my history gets used as a lesson plan." The audience murmurs again, soft, conflicted. Sunny leans in, her tone firmer now. "Miley, when you say you were exploited, I hear that. But when millions of young girls watched you push boundaries, some of them felt pressure to do the same without the resources you had." Miley's eyes narrow, not in anger, but focus. "Resources," she repeats. "I had money. I didn't have protection." A few audible gasps ripple through the crowd. "You had influence," Sunny counters. "And influence comes with weight." Miley's voice sharpens just a notch. "So does silence," she says. "And that's what people wanted from me when I stopped fitting the image they sold." Joy Behar watches the exchange like a tennis match, head turning back and forth. "I just want to say," she interjects, "that the public loves to build women up and tear them down. We've seen this movie before." Sunny doesn't disagree. "Absolutely," she says. "But acknowledging that doesn't mean we stop asking hard questions." Miley exhales, running a hand briefly through her hair. "Ask them," she says. "Just don't frame me as a cautionary tale when I'm still standing." The audience breaks into applause again, this time louder, more confident. Miley blinks rapidly, steadying herself. For a split second, the pop star armor slips, revealing something more fragile underneath. Sunny notices it. Her voice softens. "Do you feel like people only see the extremes?" she asks. "The rebellion, the shock, but not the cost." Miley nods once. "Exactly," she says. "They see the headlines. They don't see the nights I went home feeling empty, or the pressure to keep escalating just to stay relevant." That confession changes the air. Even Sunny leans back slightly, absorbing it. Whoopi jumps in gently. "That's real," she says. "And that's something a lot of folks don't talk about." "But that's my point," Sunny says, turning back to Miley. "If you know now how damaging that cycle can be, shouldn't you say that plainly to the people who idolize you?" Miley's jaw tightens again. "I have," she says. "Just not in sound bites." Sunny raises an eyebrow. "But do you ever say, 'I went too far'?" The question lands like a slap. The audience reacts instantly. Some groans, some sharp inhales. Miley goes still. Her eyes lock onto Sunnis, and for a long moment, she says nothing. "I say," Miley finally responds, voice low and controlled, that I was pushed too far. The difference is subtle, but seismic. Sunny presses her lips together. That sounds like deflection. Miley shakes her head slowly. It sounds like truth, she says. And truth isn't always neat. Joy leans forward now, more serious than before. Sunny, I think what she's saying is. Sunny cuts in, not harshly, but firmly. I'm trying to understand where responsibility begins. And I'm trying to explain, Miley replies, that responsibility doesn't mean self-erasure. The audience erupts again, louder than before. A few people stand. Others clap hesitantly, conflicted. The room feels divided down the middle. Whoopi raises her hand higher this time. Okay, she says. Let's breathe for a second. The clapping fades. The silence that replaces it is heavy. Sunny looks directly at Miley. Do you believe, she asks, that you owe your audience anything? Miley doesn't hesitate. I owe them honesty, she says. Not obedience. That answer draws a sharp reaction. Half applause, half stunned quiet. Sunny nods slowly. And what does honesty look like now? Miley leans forward, her voice steady but emotional. It looks like telling young artists they are allowed to change, she says. That they don't have to burn themselves alive to be seen. And that if they do, the blame shouldn't fall solely on them. A hush falls over the studio. Even Sunny seems momentarily disarmed. Whoopi glances toward the audience. This is hitting home for a lot of people, she says. Sunny turns back to Miley. I respect your resilience, she says. I just worry about the message that no regrets sends. Miley's eyes soften, but her stance doesn't. I don't say no regrets, she replies. I say no shame. That line lands hard. The audience breaks into applause again, stronger, more emotional. Someone whistles. Someone else wipes at their eyes. The tension has evolved now, not explosive, but deeply charged. Sunny sits back, folding her hands together. Then maybe, she says quietly, we're closer in perspective than it seems. Miley tilts her head. Maybe, she agrees. But only if we stop asking women to apologize for surviving systems built without them in mind. That's the moment the room truly erupts. Applause surges, loud and sustained. Whoopi lets it roll for a few seconds before stepping in. We're gonna take a quick break, she says, voice raised over the noise. As the camera pulls back, it catches Sunny's thoughtful expression, Joy's stunned half-smile, and Miley, sitting still, eyes shining, breathing deeply. The clash hasn't ended. It's transformed. And everyone watching can feel that whatever happens next will decide how this moment is remembered, not just as a confrontation, but as a cultural flashpoint waiting to explode beyond the studio walls. When the show comes back, the applause feels different, longer, heavier, charged with expectation. The audience isn't just reacting anymore, they are invested. This no longer feels like a segment. It feels like a moment people will reference, replay, argue about. Miley sits straighter now, shoulders squared, as if she's decided she won't shrink again today. Sunny, too, has shifted, less interrogator, more interlocutor, but the tension hasn't vanished. It's matured. Whoopi looks from one woman to the other. Before the break, she says, we were talking about survival, responsibility, and shame. Those are big words. Especially for a daytime show, Joy adds lightly, trying to ease the weight. A few laughs ripple through the crowd, but they don't linger. Sunny turns to Miley again, her voice quieter but more deliberate. I want to be clear, she says. My questions aren't about punishing you. They are about how public figures shape culture, sometimes without meaning to. Miley nods slowly. I get that, she says. I just don't accept being framed as the problem instead of a symptom. That distinction hangs in the air. Sunny leans back, crossing one leg over the other. So let's talk about the system, she says. Because you've hinted at it, but you've never really laid it bare on a platform like this. Miley's lips part slightly. For a second, it looks like she might deflect. Instead, she exhales and goes in. I was rewarded every time I went further, she says. Louder, bolder, more shocking. And the moment I stopped being profitable in that way, the narrative changed. Suddenly I was out of control. The audience murmurs, recognition, agreement. Joy nods vigorously. Hollywood does that, she says. Especially to women. Sunny doesn't interrupt this time. She listens. They sold rebellion, Miley continues, her voice steady but raw. Then sold outrage. And when I tried to pull back, I was called unstable. That messes with your head. A hush falls over the studio. Even the crew seems still. Sunny finally speaks. That sounds like coercion. Miley meets her gaze. It felt like it. The word lands heavy. Whoopi's expression hardens, not at Miley, but at the idea itself. That's not something people like to hear, she says. No, Miley replies, because it forces them to look at who benefited. Applause breaks out, slow at first, then stronger. Sunny nods thoughtfully. So when critics say you crossed lines, you feel they're ignoring who drew the map. Yes, Miley says without hesitation. And who kept moving the finish line? Joy lets out a low whistle. That's a line, she mutters, drawing a brief laugh. But Sunny isn't smiling. Let me challenge you, she says. If the system is broken, does rejecting accountability help fix it? Miley leans forward, eyes intense. I'm not rejecting accountability, she says. I'm redefining it. Accountability should point upward too, not just at the people with the least power. The audience reacts instantly. Applause, cheers, a few shouts of agreement. Sunny absorbs that, then nods slowly. That's fair, she says. But some viewers will still say, she chose this. Miley's voice softens. Choice isn't free when the cost of saying no is disappearance. That sentence hits like a punch. The audience goes quiet, not stunned, but reflective. Whoopi breaks the silence. A lot of folks at home are probably rethinking things right now. Sunny turns slightly toward the camera. And that's not a bad thing, she says. Discomfort can lead to growth. Miley smiles faintly at that, not triumphant, but appreciative. But growth, Miley adds, shouldn't require public self-destruction. Sunny holds her gaze. Do you think this conversation would have been possible 10 years ago? Miley shakes her head. No, she says. I would have been labeled difficult. Or ungrateful. Or worse. Joy chimes in. You mean like every woman who speaks up? The audience laughs, then applauds. Sunny sighs. I'll admit, she says. I came into this wanting a clearer admission of regret. Miley nods. And I came in prepared to defend my right to exist without one. The honesty between them shifts something. The tension doesn't vanish, but it loosens. Sunny gives a small, rueful smile. Maybe regret isn't the right word, she says. Maybe reflection is. Miley considers that. I can live with reflection, she says. I just won't carry shame that isn't mine. Applause swells again, long, sustained, emotional. Whoopi leans forward, voice steady. This is why conversations like this matter, she says. Not because everyone agrees, but because people are finally saying the quiet parts out loud. Sunny nods. And listening. Miley exhales, shoulders dropping for the first time since the segment began. The fight hasn't drained her, it's clarified her. As the cameras tighten in, the audience buzzing with whispered reactions, it's clear the showdown has evolved into something bigger than either woman intended. The final minutes will decide how this moment leaves the studio, not just as a clash, but as a statement. And whatever happens next is about to ripple far beyond this table. The final minutes of the segment arrive quietly, almost deceptively so. No raised voices. No interruptions. Just the hum of studio lights and the weight of everything that's already been said pressing down on the table between them. The audience can feel it. This is the moment where things don't escalate, they crystallize. Whoopi looks at the clock, then back at Miley and Sunny. We're almost out of time, she says. And I don't want to rush what just happened here. Sunny nods slowly. She turns to Miley one last time, her tone no longer sharp, but searching. If there's one thing you want people to walk away with today, she asks, what is it? Miley doesn't answer right away. She scans the audience, faces young and old, curious and conflicted. She swallows, then speaks. I want people to understand that growth doesn't always look like apology, she says. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like saying, I made it out, and I'm still allowed to speak. The audience applauds, not explosive, not divided, just full. Genuine. Sunny listens, then nods. And I want people to understand, she adds, that asking questions isn't the same as erasing someone's pain. Accountability and empathy don't have to be enemies. That lands too. A different kind of applause follows, thoughtful, respectful. Joy lets out a breath she's clearly been holding. Well, she says, half smiling, Twitter's gonna have a field day. The audience laughs, breaking the tension for the first time in minutes. Whoopi smiles, but her voice is serious. "This," she says, gesturing to the table, "is what it looks like when people don't run from the hard stuff." The camera pulls back as the applause continues, catching Miley leaning back in her chair, eyes glossy but steady. Sunny sits with her hands folded, reflective. There's no winner here. No knockout. Just two women who refuse to simplify something complicated for the sake of comfort. And then, the segment ends. But the moment doesn't. Within minutes, clips flood social media. Short snippets strip context and add fuel. Miley refuses to apologize. Sunny Hostin calls out Miley Cyrus. The View erupts in tension. Hashtags trend. Comment sections split down the middle. Some praise Miley for standing her ground, calling her brave, evolved, finally unfiltered. Others accuse her of dodging responsibility, of rewriting history. Sunny is labeled both a truth-teller and an aggressor, depending on which clip people see first. Think pieces appear by nightfall. One headline calls it a reckoning. Another calls it a missed opportunity. Fans dissect body language, tone, pauses. Psychologists weigh in. Industry insiders quietly admit that too much of what Miley said hits uncomfortably close to home. Behind the scenes, producers replay the footage, not with panic, but awe. They know they've captured something rare, a live, unscripted collision between two truths that don't cancel each other out. Miley posts nothing that day. No clarifications. No notes-app apology. Just silence, and that silence speaks louder than any statement could. Sunny, later that evening, shares a single line on social media. Hard conversations matter, especially when they make us uncomfortable. The reaction is instant. Fans argue. Support pours in. Critics double down. And somewhere in the noise, a deeper conversation starts to form. About young women in the industry, about who gets grace, about how often accountability is demanded from the visible instead of the powerful. Days later, the clip is still circulating. Still debated. Still unresolved. And that's the point. Because this wasn't about winning an argument. It was about exposing a fault line and daring people to look at it instead of smoothing it over. So now, it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Was Miley standing up for herself, or sidestepping responsibility? Was Sunny holding her accountable, or pushing too hard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it, honestly.